You were speaking before about being optimistic for the future of women as foreign correspondents. So what do you see the industry looking like in the coming years?
Well, I think the reality is that as more women go up into senior management positions, that is going to have an impact on the way that, the major issues affecting women are dealt with. The issues like, can you be a mother and a war correspondent, how mothers are treated, not just institutionally, but also by society at large. As more women go up into editorial positions, I think they will bring their experience of that. And also just really simple issues like not judging you for coming back in. Or if you don't want to come back in, if you want to take the entirety of your maternity leave, knowing that that's okay as well. And when you look up and you see that the person making these decisions is themselves a woman, themselves have a family, then you'll feel like you can go to your boss with more of these issues.
Do you think it's only female correspondents who challenge preconceptions by going back to war reporting after having a family?
I think so. I've also had male colleagues say, one colleague said to me, I promised myself and my wife that I would never go back to Mogadishu after we had children. So I do think that this is an issue that parents face. I don't have children, so I don't know, but I do think sometimes your priorities change hugely once you have children.
So do you think men face the same level of discrimination if they decide not to go back after having a family?
I do think that when a man says that he wants to stay at home for his children or basically behave outside of what we think of as the traditional father roles, that they do get a bit more applause from society in general.
Do you think that there are less female war correspondents because the audience sitting at home just don't want to see women in these situations?
I don't think the audience has a resistance to seeing women in war zones. There's still a fascination with women in war zones, especially younger women. I do, however, think that there is, you come up against the cultural mores. And just because we think of ourselves in the West as being liberal and, that these are battles that have already been fought, we don't recognize the chauvinism that underpins most of this discussion. Why shouldn't a woman have similar agency to a man? If she wants to go put herself in a situation where her life is at risk, society is not her caretaker. The fact that Reporters Sans Frontières felt that they could even say women have no place in war zones after the attacks on female correspondents, I think shows how far we have to go in changing the way that society views us. But I think that is within the broader context of how society views women, and especially younger women. Would they be having that discussion if it was Kate 80? Is the issue, you can't be young, you can't be unoffensive to look at? Is that the conversation that we're having here? But I think it is a broader conversation about the fact that if you're female and you're not unattractive, then there are very lowered expectations of what you should be achieving in life. I think it's important not to separate out these issues from what women have to deal with on a daily basis in society and the fact that we still have a long way to go.
So it was mentioned in the talk that in the Middle East there are many more native female correspondents than Western female correspondents. Why do you think that is?
I think it is the local knowledge, definitely. I mean, I'm from Sudan and we have Sharia law. It's a very conservative culture, but I think in a weird way, because of that, often women get a little bit of protection that men don't. It's quite a difficult line to cross when you attack a woman, however repressive a regime you are, and I think that's why the Egyptian government, it sent such shockwaves when that happened, both locally in the region and internationally. You're sending a specific point that I'm going to cross that taboo line of targeting women and attacking women. So often, back home in Sudan, you would be in situations of civil unrest, and most of the journalists still remaining would be the women, because the men would have been beaten up, pushed off, pulled back from the front lines. But also I think the kind of characters that are attracted to journalism, they tend to be the kind of characters that are already quite outliers in that sense. So if you're determined enough to want to go into that kind of profession that's not necessarily very socially comfortable in those kind of societies, then you're pretty badass. And so then you're good, you keep pushing that boundary back. Back home in Sudan, most of the people studying in journalism schools across the country are women. I think often we have a very Western-centric view of these things, and we presume that in the West, the situation in terms of women's place in these fields has to be so much more advanced than it is everywhere else in the world, when actually often we have things to learn.